Alright, hello. Today is Monday, June the 9th. I'm Dan. This is Dan's Astrology. I'm making a video for a full moon in Sagittarius. As I record this, the moon is still at the end degrees of Scorpio. It'll be heading into Sagittarius soon. It will be completely full in about 2 days from now. At the point of recording this video, there's already been a lot of intense stuff in the news, especially around the protests in Los Angeles. I'm not going to be spending too much time on that, though. The main thing I'm thinking about is, in terms of the astrology, is an interesting full moon because the ruler of Sagittarius, Jupiter, is ingressing into Cancer, the place of its exaltation tomorrow, and immediately as it does that, it'll be making a square aspect to Saturn and Neptune in Aries, and there are certain themes to pay attention to with all this. First of all, in the context of talking about a full moon, there's a certain, and the fact that Jupiter is going into a water sign, there's this full moon in Sagittarius, its ruler moving into a water sign, a shift from the intellectual energy of Gemini, the kind of energy that is very communicative and very chatty, very conversational, very kind of a very talkative podcast or something like that, into a sign of greater emotional resonance, perhaps moodiness, emotionality, but a huge energy shift, right? And also to keep in mind that there is a something else going on around all this, in that obviously Gemini and Sagittarius are mutable signs. They're signs that have to do with change, and the full moon is has to do with things like the body, the moods, the environment, and with the ruler shifting for Cancer, I think there's a pretty big vibe shift going on around this full moon. However, it's not all easy, of course, because we're going through this fairly difficult Saturn-Neptune transit, which Jupiter is going to be making the square to. In all the midst of this, you may have noticed I've decided to redecorate my room a little bit. And I figured that maybe I could explain some of the reasons why I decided to, I mean, this could be kind of minor, like maybe other people may make some redecoration decisions and not you don't have to really overanalyze it. But in my case, you may have noticed that for a period of time I've been recording videos with the face of the esoteric teacher Gurdjieff on one side, and then a poster that had Philip K. Dick on it in a kind of stylized artwork. And the story behind these posters is that in the year 2021, I was in the midst of a health crisis, an autoimmune flare-up, where I was totally incapacitated and bored because I was too sick to do anything. And in that state of mind, I went and ordered a bunch of posters I was basically just to give myself something to do, right? I look around on Redbubble for posters to redecorate, and the reason why I chose these ones was Philip K. Dick has for a long time been a big influence on me, and Gurdjieff, I spent some time in a Gurdjieff group after the pandemic, online and stuff like that. The reasons why I decided to take them down were partly motivated. For the Philip K. Dick poster, I have to admit that Weird Studies podcast has this platform called the Weirdosphere, which I haven't been participating on. And they recently did a course on Philip K. Dick's, what's it called? The Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch. And like where you did it as like a book club where everybody would read the book, and then they would have a class where Eric Davis did some courses on it and stuff like that, and then you had like one session where you could ask him questions. And I did enjoy Eric Davis's book High Weirdness, where he talks about Philip K. Dick, Lovecraft, some stuff like that. And I've just been going through this thing where I have just been really not in the mood for doing any webinars, right? And I also, as much as I appreciate Philip K. Dick, I don't know. There's something about it where I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I just felt like I didn't really want to just deal with the weight of having a Philip K. Dick poster being broadcast out to the world all the time, or because especially it seemed to me like if I was such a Philip K. Dick person, I'd be taking the Eric Davis course, and I just really didn't feel like it, right? And part of the reason I have to admit is that as much as I like Philip K. Dick, there's something about what I like about Philip K. Dick is that his stories are disorienting in a kind of like eldritch, like psychedelic horror, and I don't know. I just didn't really feel like doing that in a book club environment. Which is actually the funny thing is actually kind of ironic because for the longest time I was trying to get a Philip K. Dick book club going, and then when I had the opportunity to do one, it was like I didn't want to, right? So it's like this thing that I think I identify with, that I think I want to do. And then when there's a really good opportunity for it, it's like, no, right? But then at the same time, you know, there's also, I don't need to like hesitate thinking about like Twin Peaks, for example, but the same thing come out where these guys did a Twin Peaks thing where they would like watch along Twin Peaks episodes and do commentary at this thing. And it's like, it is one of my favorite shows, but there's something about the format of like online like I guess you could say like parasocial group events where you and a huge group of people are going to participate in doing this thing online, and then you're going to like have a group discussion where there might be like, you know, you could have like hundreds of people doing it, and then only a fraction of those people participate on the screen. The rest are like parasocial lurkers, right? There's something about this whole dynamic where even when it's things that I really enjoy, I really just don't feel like doing it. Okay? And then the other thing is that I don't know, I don't have to the last time I did a weird studies course, it was the one on AI, and I have to admit, well, there is this thing going on right now with AI paranoia or AI apocalypse, and there's a lot of like, there's something about it where even though they did a more optimistic kind of, it was pretty good, I thought. I enjoyed the course, but it was kind of thing, it was like, even though I enjoyed doing it, there was still this palpable sense of fear, or I don't know if fear is the right word. There's some kind of negative emotion about the whole thing that just made the whole thing kind of a bummer for me, and just kind of makes, but then I feel like I keep getting into this thing where I am more and more just not participating in things. I don't know, that's those kinds of things. And I think this could be seen perhaps in the dynamic with the Saturn-Neptune squaring Jupiter, where there's this sort of like stinginess or kind of sense of isolation or like holding back, or like, but there is also, you know, Jupiter is moving into this position where Jupiter is generous, altruistic, wants to share, all this kind of stuff. But there's also some kind of like, kind of limit where you don't, like, maybe it's time to stop something. You don't want to keep going with it, or you need to like, it's mutable. You need to switch it up a bit, right? And similarly, the other poster with Gurdjieff was basically, I had this poster on my wall, not in the frame, and then I was thinking, maybe if the circumstance is right, I'll switch this around and put the Gurdjieff poster in my frame, right? But the thing about this is that what motivated me to do this is that there is a Gurdjieff group that I was participating in, although there's I don't know, I don't really want to go into too many details, but I feel like the basic gist of it is that I'm not entirely against it. It has its pros and cons for me, but the basic point is that I'm not getting myself involved with it right now. And a lot of there's some part of the dynamic for me is similar to the whole online parasocial kind of dynamic, in the sense that, well, I don't know. It's kind of a tricky thing to get into, because I think that if you did do an in-person kind of group, it could be, there's all sorts of risks that it's like, seems like it could easily get into like a new age cult kind of territory. And that at the very least, I mean, the thing about these online things is that, like, I have to say that these people were pretty good in terms that they never asked me for any money. They never really asked me to do, like, it wasn't really, there's nothing really that, I don't know. There's, in some way, I'm sure there are a lot of other strange, new agey, spiritual, or whatever word you want to use, groups that are much worse than what I was involved with. But nevertheless, there's some basic dynamic going on with it where I do appreciate the Gurdjieff teachings, but I find basically it's almost like that kind of principle of less is more, right? In the sense that I don't feel like I need to really intensely involve myself with that scene in order to get a kind of a benefit from it. And that I do have, for example, this book, In Search of the Miraculous, by P.D. Ouspensky, where this is basically Ouspensky writing about his experience with Gurdjieff. And I find I find this book to be really great, but I find it's good in a way that, like, I can just, like, read, like, I've had this book for, what is it, like, at least 4 years now, and I can just read, like, a little bit of it each year, and it's like the little bit that I read gives me quite a lot, and it's like I don't feel like I really need to get into this really intense thing where I'm just, like, focusing tons of energy on this one particular style of teaching or something like that, right? And so I don't know. There's something about, and then there's also this whole thing where I kind of feel like there are certain practices that go with it, namely the Gurdjieff movements, that I always kind of felt like they were trying to, like, incorporate that in, but I always just felt like, to me, it seems like it would make more sense if you were to do it like a in-person thing, right? And to just like, I'm just going to participate with a bunch of people online in a webinar doing this, like, in this sort of, like, weird virtual space. It's sort of like there's something about the virtual online webinar space dynamic that something about it kind of bothers me, and I don't really want to be involved with it. Or especially when it's like, there's this kind of thing too where I have to admit that I had a just, I don't know, to go on that theme, before I got into the Gurdjieff stuff, meditation was really helpful for me, and there's a local meditation teacher that I would work with, and after the pandemic happened, she started doing meditation sessions in the forms of, like, Zoom meetings. But there's something about her style, which, I mean, like, she adapted it for doing a Zoom meeting, but there's something about her style that I found was like counterintuitive or didn't seem to go very well with the format of holding like virtual Zoom meeting webinars, in that when I would work with her, she would often describe the practice as like you are anchoring your attention, your awareness in the present moment in the room, right? To be say like and in the room as in the actual literal room that you are in, right? To be like there's all this stuff going on out there in the world, but I'm grounded into my own physical body, my local environment where I'm actually sitting, where I'm actually existing. I'm not in some sort of like airy fairy like space, some nebulous webinar virtual reality world. I'm actually in the grounded in the. What I find about this is that like I also did like spiritual emergence support groups. I was involved in the spiritual emergence community for a while, and that there's a disproportionate, there's all this energy put on grounding, staying grounded, or like, okay, now, like, there's this kind of, it's like counterintuitive because it's like there's all these people are going to be like, okay, we're going to spend like 2 hours investing all our energy into this completely ungrounded virtual space, like this room that doesn't exist in real life, that's like turning your own physical space into a container for some sort of virtual online space. And then we're going to put lots of energy into that, and then but then we're going to be like, oh, but don't be ungrounded, we're going to have to spend all this time grounding and then trying to like pull our energy out of that and put it back. Like, it's like, why don't you just fucking not do that in the first place? Like, it's stupid, right? And then the whole point also about this is that like there's like, it's like, to me it just seems obvious that there's this huge like preoccupation in that whole scene with grounding, but like that's because you spend all your fucking, it's all just on the internet. Like, if you just had a bunch of people who are just like, we're gonna deal with all this in an offline way, in a really grounded way, in our bodies, we could probably talk about all this other stuff other than grounding, right? It's just like, why? It's like you create this. It's like you create a situation that creates a problem, and then you spend all that whole situation trying to solve the problem you're creating, right? It's stupid. Like, why not just not do this in the first place, right? And then this kind of thing is like. I'm also realizing that, like, part of the appeal of, like, I mean, I don't know, I'm not against doing book clubs, I guess, but part of the appeal to reading is that you can, like, have your own private choice to just, like, oh, I'm going to pick this and read this regardless of what other people are doing, and I don't have to feel like I'm connected to this weird fucking, like, egregore group spirit of all these strangers I don't know that I'm not, like, why, like, it's like taking, it's actually like, to me the book club thing often feels like taking something which could be enjoyable and then making it bad, because it's like I want to do some, if I want to involve myself in a group activity, I want to actually like have some people to hang out with and go to a coffee shop or something. I don't want to feel I'm plugged in to this spectral ghost world of like all these people I don't know, and like it's just stupid. I don't like it. Okay, so and it's like it has the effect of taking things that I like and making me not like them almost, right? So, and that, I don't know. Maybe who knows? Maybe doing it in person wouldn't be any better. I don't know. Maybe I'm just. That for me is a big factor of it, right? That I just don't, I just really can't. I have this problem too, though, that with my astrology channel that I'm doing, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess if I wanted to make it a more profitable business, I don't know. I'm not in the business of trying to make webinars or courses or things like that. I just have this. I don't know. It could be because Jupiter is going to my ninth house. Maybe I'm thinking about it in terms of school, higher learning, stuff like that. I have some kind of, I don't know. Like, should I go to university or something? There's something else about all this, in that, I mean, it's not just my. I don't, my ninth house transits, but this whole thing about Jupiter usually stands for travel. I saw another guy talking about like broadening your horizons or something like that. There's something about the whole situation with Jupiter and Cancer where I feel like or you could take it in this direction of like scarcity and abundance, right? There's some sort of like Jupiter. There's a spirit of generosity. There's a spirit of adventure. There's a spirit of all that, but it's not easy this time around because of the square to Saturn and Neptune, right? And this is what the astrology helps with, is that you can see that there's a shift in energy going on, but that shift in energy has to do with a certain kind of discontentment or a certain kind of not being happy with things and being kind of even maybe being moody, emotional, or I don't know, something like that, right? And like that's so a lot of there. Sometimes this comes from like the reason there could be a lot of things which I enjoy at the level of intellectual stimulation, but there's some kind of like being plugged into the collective mass. There's a lot of moody emotional business that I just like. It's just easier to appreciate things without being unnecessarily mixed up in the big collective mess of all the stuff going on, right? And so what I've chosen to replace this stuff with is that's a poster from Alan Moore's Promethea. This poster on my right is a poster that came with a vinyl record from the band Stereolab. At the top it reads "Transient Random Noise Bursts with Announcements." Now, the reason why I picked this out, the thing about this poster is that I have to admit, I don't know how well it's showing up in the video. Probably good enough. There's this poster, the yellow and blue one. To be honest, I didn't buy this album because I like the album artwork, and I didn't. But so it's sort of maybe somewhat questionable why I'm displaying album artwork that I don't even really like. But the album, on the other hand, is that the other day I put on the album, and I have to admit, although I like Stereolab, I have actually seen them live before, and they do have a new album out. I often have this thing where I have a certain indecision about what Stereolab record. I don't know their albums as well as other bands. They all kind of blur together for me. But this album, for whatever reason, I decided to buy it, and I put on, it's like some sort of deluxe edition that has like the demos and B-sides and all this kind of stuff on it. And I was listening to that. There's some demo version of one of the songs on this album, and what's kind of funny is that when I listened to the non-demo version, I realized that it's mixed in a certain way where the lyrics are hard, like they're obscured in some way, and whereas in the demo version, the lyrics are much more clear. And it was like, I had this weird experience that was like, was I just like never paying attention to the lyrics of the song before, and I'm only hearing them now? Or maybe I just don't pay that much attention to Stereolab lyrics or something. But anyways, there was apparently the song is supposedly about somebody who is in 1930s Germany who is foreseeing the rise of fascist Nazi Germany or whatever, and this person, from this person's perspective, I don't know if the lyrics are on the back of there. I didn't look, but the lyrics go something like, maybe I'll get them wrong, but something like, I don't care if democracy is being fucked. I don't care if the fascists are going to win. I don't care if socialism is full of sin. It's exciting. And there's like creative tension. I can't remember the exact way how it goes, right? But I feel like this kind of thing where it's like on some basic level, I feel like there's this kind of moment of like pessimism or futility or doomerism. But what I was trying to say before about there's this whole conflict between getting involved online in online virtual spaces versus being grounded into the body and being present in the current situation. And if I just am present with my family, and it's like my mother and my sister seem to live in this world where if you just listen to how they talked about, I mean, anything going on in the States might as well not be happening, right? And so it becomes this thing where it's like I have this sort of like experience of life of like, you know, having like a private experience where I'm looking at my phone, seeing all this bad stuff happening, and then the embodied experience of living with my family where there's really not any immediate problem, or if I go for a walk in my neighborhood, there's not like riots or protests going. It's like there's this kind of idea that if I'm grounded in my own situation, all the drama and chaos and collective, you know, drama, it seems very far away and not something that is really present in my situation, right? But the problem about all this like online stuff is that even when people are like spiritual practitioners and they're all like, it's kind of like counterintuitive, I feel, because there's so much focus on to be present and to be grounded and all that, but then spend 2 hours, you know, projecting your energy out into the aethers of this random space that doesn't exist, and then you have to like learn all these techniques to bring it to it's like, this is so dumb, and then it also just feels like everything is like weirdly like psychotically fragmented, where you're like, oh, I'm all moody and emotional because there's all this stuff in the media about the world ending, but then you're like, my family like is like, they're like all just like super positive and cheery and there's like nothing wrong, and it's like I don't, you know, it's just like, and then like if I try to be like bring that up, they treat me as like we don't like to talk about that stuff, we just want to keep it positive, right? And it's sort of like, you know what I'm trying to say? It's just sort of, it's like, it makes, and so I have to be like, I don't know. There's something, to me, it really makes sense having an actual brick and mortar space where if you're going to like have like a seminar or a webinar, you actually have people meeting in the same room and like sharing the same space and like having the sense of actually, rather than being like a whole bunch of lurkers who don't even see each other. And you're like, or like this whole thing where like one person shows up on the screen at a time, and there's this whole massive audience that you don't even know is there, and like, or I'm talking and I'm just in my empty room, imagining at some point in time somebody's going to be listening to this. Like there's that, and I think for me this is a full moon thing, because the archetype of your inhabited space, your inhabited environment, your home is a lunar thing. Or or where you situate yourself, where you spend your time, whether that's a physical environment or a virtual environment. There's something about it where I just really haven't been feeling like participating in virtual online spaces at all, even if it's things that I like, even if it's things that I feel interested in. And I feel, but nonetheless, I'm not, despite all the gloom or all this kind of, there's this need to be like a hermit, to isolate, to withdraw, to disconnect, to do my own thing, to read some book that other people aren't reading. Or like if all these people, if I get like a whole, you know, I don't want to get 100 people reading my favorite book and then reading it with them. I don't want to do that. I want to read something else. I want to read my own thing, right? I don't want to just participate in some weird like, amorphous blob of collective activity. It's not doing it for me, right? But there's still this there's sometimes there's things you pick up in the collective where that I don't know if I who knows what's going on. I don't know if I agree with everything going on. I don't know if I support it, but sometimes there is at least the excitement that I guess something's happening, right? Or that it's like, but it's a kind of a curse in a way, right? Because it's like that may you live in interesting times thing. That it's at least interesting to watch what's happening, to pay attention, to notice that we live in a dynamic time full of change and excitement. But anything that's interesting about that does not seem to really cross over to what my family is like. And whether or not there's anybody in the local community who gives a shit, I have no idea, because I'm basically alienated and isolated from my local community. And I don't, like, this is the whole thing, is like, I don't know, at least their whole thing about, yeah, I don't know. The thing about with Sagittarius is that I feel like in the full moon, I feel like there's this need for maybe, well, I don't know, the pack. Like you want to be like a gang in a gang or a biker gang or like, like I mean that could be playing out in, but this sort of like whatever is going on with these packs of ruffians, some of which who are dressed as law enforcement officers. Some, you know what I'm trying to say? Like there could be these kinds of like the urge to mass together into these packs, and no, I mean I just like it's a bad vibe. I'm not really into it right now, right? I feel like even though I mean like me like I don't know like I have some responsibility to stay here with my family pack and make sure the family situation's all right, even if I mean I don't know they seem pretty positive and optimistic and all this kind of thing, but it's just odd because there's sort of like I there's so like I think what am I trying to express anyways with the Stereolab song. Was it called Jenny Onadine or something? There's a basic there's still some kind of like interest. There's still some kind of excitement. There's still kind of some kind of like it's exciting to be alive. It's exciting time to just like participate in what's going on. But then with the Saturn Neptune, it's also like yeah, but it's also fucked. The situation is fucked, and I don't want to be part of it. I'm just like fuck this. So I don't know like if maybe as a business model I don't know if as a business model if I want to just create my own webinar or my own course or my own virtual thing. I kind of want to have some in-person real life community, or I don't even know, maybe it's better not to, maybe it's actually better not to have community. um Also, I mean, should be obvious. This will be an interesting one to pay attention to what's going on with Donald Trump because he has a full moon in Sagittarius, Sun in Gemini, full moon in Sagittarius. In his chart, he's having his birthday soon with this big, massive military parade as Jupiter ingresses into Cancer, which is where America has its Jupiter return. And I don't know, it is what it is. I'm just trying to express from my perspective how this is. As I'm a Sagittarius stellium guy from the perspective of a fully loaded Sagittarius native. This is just how I'm taking it, and you can make of this what you will. This is what I've got. I don't know if this is my best one ever. I'm just trying to roll with it. Okay. Um, so I don't know. Make of it what you will. Thanks for watching.